We have a special treat tonight.
Andy. Enough.
Okay. Dale is going to interview me, so I don't have to do any work from now on.
Yes.
Dale Romans, by the way. He's very important.
Thank you, Andy, for having me. This is a great opportunity, but you're playing a little bit unfair when you have your mother in the front row. I have to be nice.
I was thinking that. I'm not stupid.
No. In my mind, I've got all the questions about the list you're on, the felonies, and all that kind of stuff.
She likes your daughter, so be nice.
Right,
She's a big fan of Bailey's.
But I'm going to start with one question. And if the question's answered the way it should be, then I'll throw this list of paper, I got all my list of mean questions on over my shoulder.
You aren't mean.
Before I knew your mother was here, I was going to ask you who your favorite trainer was, and I know you'd say Leroy Jolly, Alan Jerkins, somebody like that. But since I saw her here, I'm going to ask you, who's your favorite hillbilly trainer, overweight, droopy-eyed, friend, scratch that, acquaintance of Wayne Stock and Kurt Pasico?
Gargan's here. That's not fair.
Right. So you can answer that question. We'll tear these up and go with play nice.
Can I say, how about favorite trainer friend?
There you go.
You.
All right. Let's talk about Andy. You know, I came here. Danny Gargan's trying to interrupt the crowd. Will someone get him out of here, please?
You brought him here. You're trouble.
I didn't bring him. I saw him crossing the street. He's from Kentucky. I got to play nice. I came here to have fun, make fun of Andy. If anybody's seen us interview each other before, or Andy interview me, it's always fun. We jab back and forth. But as I was driving over here, I kind of changed my mind. I said, because, Andy's been very important to this game. And I really want to hear what he has to say about the things he's done, how he's gotten in the game. And so anybody who's here want me to talk about how short he is, the fact he can't get the stuff off the top shelf in his house.
Your entire family is 4'8".
Or the receding hairline, or anything like that. It ain't going to happen. Andy, thanks for being here with me tonight.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. Appreciate that.
Right. Let's start with the fact that we are friends outside of horse racing.
We are.
Yeah, people may not know that, the way he talks bad about my weight and stuff in interviews. But before we go any further, I want to thank Glenn for the job he does do at NYRA. In my opinion, Glenn is the best track man in New York outside of the guy at Finger Lakes and Yonkers.
The Yonkers guy is pretty good, to be fair.
So, no, he does a great job. And we all love Glenn. It's a thankless job. Everybody hates the track man. Everybody loves Glenn. I can't figure that out.
It is amazing.
All right, Andy, let's go back a little ways. To 12-year-old Andy.
He was awful.
That meets
My mom liked me.
That meets Harvey Pack.
I met Harvey on the porch. As some people remember in Saratoga, now where my office is now, which is the executive office. I have a desk in somebody's office. I'm barely there. There used to be the shoe shine guys used to sit out in front of the porch as you're sort of looking, where the jocks room would be on your left if you were looking at it, and the shoe shine guys were there, and there was like an actual sort of porch there where they went in the older building, and that's where I met Harvey Pack when I don't know if I met him in '75. I might not have met him until '76. I think I met him the summer of '76, so I was 14 years old actually. And that's when I met Harvey. And Harvey used to put me on his show. He used to have a show, which some people will probably remember back in the New York tracks, where he would have on like personalities between races. Pete Axtone would come on, Beyer would come on, local writers and different people. And Harvey would bring me on. I think the first time I went on, it might have been the Marlboro Cup of 1976 when Wajima beat Forgo. I think that was the first time. I'm not sure. It might have been the next year, though. It might have been the next year's Marlboro Cup.
Anybody who doesn't know who Harvey Pack is,
everybody knows who Harvey is.
He is a legend.
Talked to him yesterday. 91, doing great.
Remember, we're out to a live audience, a lot of people. So Harvey Pack was a legend that Andy preceded. And there aren't many people that can precede a legend. You watch basketball, who comes along behind Adolph Rupp, Joe B. Hall? And
Kentucky guys.
There's a lot of people out there, but Andy's done a good job. And if you go on and you watch DRF, you'll see Harvey Pack discuss the first time he met Andy at 14 years old. But life didn't bring you straight to horse racing.
No. We grew up in New Jersey when I was a kid. When I was a kid in New Jersey, my father liked going to the track, and we lived outside of Princeton, and my dad would go. Well, what happened was Pennsylvania changed the law, and I think you could go when you were 10. And my father would go to Liberty Bell, which at the time had flat racing, and then it went to harness. I went to it when I was in college. I used to go to Liberty Bell. It's now gone. And he wanted me to go, and I went with him once, but I had no interest in going to the track at all. We moved up here. It was right after the meet was over, and I would go to the harness track with him occasionally, but I really didn't have much interest in that. And it wasn't until the following summer, the summer of '74, when I went over with him. He worked at Empire State College, and he would go over. They only had a trifecta, which people know, in the last race. My dad loved being the trifectas, so he would come home from work and bring me over. And I mean, I don't know about you guys, but you do is have to step inside Saratoga Racetrack, and you don't really want to be anywhere else, right?
Well, you know you're someplace special.
Right. Yeah.
And the people that grow up around here, live around here, they realize, I mean, if you think about it, if you grow up in this area, which you did, that they know it's coming. They start talking about it a month ahead of time, 30 days till Saratoga, like we do the Derby back in Louisville. But even then, it wasn't a career option for you.
No, I mean, I read Andy Byers' book, and I thought, oh, you can make money playing the horses. I mean, the thing is that Byers' book came out the same time.
But then you figured out you could make money if somebody pays you to handicap horses and give everybody bad advice.
I got there eventually, right?
Yeah.
It's not always bad. It's usually bad.
That's the chapter of the second book.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny, but I mean, I always wanted to work in racing, but you're right. I mean, it's hard to find work in racing doing things unless you're sort of some kind of personality or you're writing about it. And it evolved over time with me working. It was more, you know, when I was going full time in the mid-'90s, Steve Christ was working at NYRA, and he hired me to come on Talking Horses at that time, back in the end of '95, I think.
But
and that
tell
was
people
for
what you were
TV.
doing at the time. You were working on Wall Street.
Right, I was trading options down the
Not much different than betting horses, by the way.
Oh, it was the biggest gambling casino in the world. Arguably, the options exchanges, whether it was the CBOE in Chicago, the Amex in New York, and different exchanges around the country, they were just gambling pits. And I always found that when I worked downtown, I'd find guys that would get themselves in trouble gambling, basically putting on big positions and taking enormous amounts of risk. And I always thought to myself, these guys are basically degenerate gamblers. They just didn't know it. You know, they didn't realize until they got to the exchange. And it really, I mean, the amount of, listen, they monitor it, and you have backers and things, but people could put on very reckless positions. And, you know, when you think about when the internet boom was going on, the late 90s.
The first big bubble we lived through.
Right. I mean, the action down on the options exchanges, it was just outrageous. And back then, for anybody that's not familiar, the markets were very wide. So there was an enormous amount of money to be made on both sides of the market. The idea in making money was not to take risk, to take a minimal amount of risk, to be trading on both sides, to be trading back and forth. As time went on, and that subsided, and all the internet stocks, most of them collapsed, the markets got very tight. They got to be a penny and 2 cents wide. And that's good for the public.
Enough of that. Enough of that.
For us.
So after you got fired.
I got fired before I went to the track in '94.
Before you went to the racetrack. But what about the train rides with you and Wayne Stock?
Well,
back and forth.
That's a jump to Wayne Stock.
Well, that's leading to you all. Andy used to work in Wall Street. He lives in Manhattan now. He lived in Manhattan then. But he would catch the subway to the racetracks every weekend.
Long Island Railroad to Belmont is where I met Wayne.
Went Long Island Road to Belmont Park, and he met a close friend of ours that introduced us, Wayne Stock.
Right.
But he said they would sit there and handicap all the way in and all the way out. And there's a Wall Street guy. Wayne's a asbestos guy, and the one thing
the same. We're both involved with trash.
Right. The one thing about horse racing is it's a common denominator for all people. It doesn't matter what you do, what your economic status is. It makes us all equal. When we're on that train with a racing form, a guy that has a racing form is going to come sit by you.
Oh, yeah, no, that's how Wayne and I met. I mean, Wayne was the one really, I mean, I made a lot of great friends at the track, but he was sort of somebody that worked outside of racing, and I met him when I was going to the track back in the late 90s, and we stayed good friends.
Yeah, and Wayne's one of our close friends and a good dude. He introduced us, and then it progressed. At what point did you decide to make the leap and make this your career? You
know, I was trading for myself from about 98 until 2007. And I'm sure some of you saw the movie The Big Short. If you've seen the movie The Big Short, the first company
that's named after you.
In the movie. Don't worry, I'll get even, because I'm on TV, and you're not. And in The Big Short, the first company that they show going bankrupt is a company called New Century. Well, that was a big company I traded on the floor, and I had a big position in New Century and lost a lot of money in it, and it basically sort of wiped me out on the floor from trading. But at that point, I wasn't making much money.
That's when you were fired.
And no, I was fired in '94. I was working for myself back then.
Go ahead.
I could only fire myself.
I was getting a little bored. Go ahead.
I'm not embarrassed to admit I was fired. you're nobody if you haven't been fired. And I've been fired a couple times, actually.
You haven't tried. You've never tried. You'll never strike out.
Right. And I realized I want to work at the track. You know, I want to work in racing, and now's the time. It's now or never. It was 2007, and I thought I've got to go work in racing. This is what I want to do, and I've got a little cachet from doing the Ciro seminars in the summers up here. And I did some work for UBET. I don't know if anybody remembers that. And then a year later, I called Charlie Hayward, who's president of NYRA, about going to work for him, and that's how I came to work at NYRA. But it was really because I thought to myself, this is what you want to do, and life is, you've got one life.
Well, that's where I'm leading. You finally made the leap. You left Wall Street. That had to be a stressful job.
Well, yes, it was very stressful because you have open positions. Yes, trading was my stress level has gone down astronomically since I left working downtown.
But you went to what you wanted to do, what you loved, and that's the most important thing in life.
Yeah.
Get up. If you're in the racing business and you love horse racing, there's a big difference. There's three types of people. People like horses, people like horse racing, and the people that like horses and horse racing. Now we'll put Andy in the part that likes horse racing. And you jumped into horse racing. You've done what you've loved in life, and that's what everyone should be able to do.
Well, I mean, it's a blessing to be able to do that. I mean, I'm working at Saratoga. They're paying me to be up here, to work at the track in Saratoga.
What you paid for to drive in and do every weekend.
Right. It's the greatest gift that I could ever have. I mean, you complain, you work too hard or whatever, and things going on. But at the end of the day, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. The luckiest. I can't think of anybody that's more fortunate than I am. And in return, my picks may suck, whatever, but I'm going to work as hard as I can to try to do the right thing.
And you do. You handicap very hard. I know that. The work is put in. The fact that he comes up with a 4-5 shot every time, it's not from lack of work.
I said promises fulfilled should have been favored.
Yeah, he said he should have been favored, and he won. That's because I called him nice horse. Said you better pick my horse if you want to look smart.
Yeah.
No, one thing about Andy, it don't matter what you say. If I tell him I love my horse, he'll blast me about 10 different ways my horse can't win.
That's true.
And the bad part is he's usually right.
That's true. That's true.
But you got your dream job.
Yeah. I got my dream life.
Dream life.
I'm here with my mom. I could come to Saratoga, see my mom during the summer. What's better than that, right?
Well, in my opinion, you're the best in the game.
Thank you. It's nice of you to say.
I'm going to tell you a couple of reasons why. And I'm not going to put a caveat of best in the game as a friend. Best. 50% of the people hate you. 50% of the people love you, and I happen to be in that 50%. But 100% of the people you evoke emotion in. So you're doing your job.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Listen, this whole idea of strong opinions when somebody, it's like, I grew up in Saratoga. I spent my childhood fighting with my good friends about horse racing. We just argued about races all the time. We had different opinions. We yelled at each other, and we were both wrong a lot of the time and occasionally right. But that's what racing is about. Passion. I mean, right? Everybody loves racing. You're passionate about it, whatever level you're at. And if you don't have strong opinions, you're in the wrong game.
You are. And you know what I tell everybody about this game? People do not seem to understand. It's not about winning money. There's so many rich people that play horses. It's about being right.
Oh, 100%.
Right? It's about being right. It's about figuring out the mathematical formula and walking around and your friends patting you on your back. How'd you figure that one out?
Right.
And so there's passion about it. And nobody's ever picked the loser. The jock rode it bad, like today in the feature race with Javier.
That was bad.
Huh?
I love Javier. Yeah. That was bad.
He's a great rider. Please be
great
good friends.
Man.
We're not going to knock him that much, but it wasn't a very pretty ride. But it's about being right. And then it spurs arguments.
Absolutely.
And that's what makes it fun.
Well, think of our next guest. Boyd Browning is coming from Fasig-Tipton, and
he might have to be tomorrow. We might not have time for him.
We'll have time for him.
If I didn't know Fasig-Tipton, $250,000 for the last horse I bought, I would bump him tonight.
I was going to say, if you don't let him on, he may make you pay.
Right? Yeah, he's making me
random guess that you owed him money. Just a lucky guess on my part. But people with the sales, right? That's all about people making guesses, and a lot of people are wrong, but occasionally they're right.
Rich people come in this game, and it's a game you can't buy, as you know. And I think that a lot of them come in, they can have anything they want. They can buy all the cars they want, all the houses they want. They can fly in private planes, but you can't buy horse racing. It's the only game that a guy can buy a $17,000 yearling and it'd be Seattle Slew and make you're equal to the kings and queens of the world.
No, I agree. It's a great equalizer racing. In all ways, it's a great equalizer for all of us.
We go to Churchill Downs, and it's funny, there's some guys that run around, believe me, they aren't making $300 a week, standing next to billionaires, and they're both cheering for horses to come home.
Right.
And they feel the same emotions are evoked no matter how much. These guys can't bet enough to get a real rush from the money, but they get a rush from being right. And then they'll turn to the guy that bet the $2 and they'll talk about how they came to their conclusions.
And the $2 may be much more important to the person who bet the $2 versus who bet $2,000.
But they all talk about how bad Andy's pick was.
They've been teetering on the edge of being good lately, but teetering on the edge.
I think that we should really make you play your picks.
I do play my picks. Everybody knows I play my picks.
Yeah. Instead of a paycheck, Andy has to bet.
Believe me, my paycheck.
I
do. Anybody who wants to check my account is welcome to. I think, and on that subject, and it's come up recently, the most important thing for somebody in my job is to bet. Because if you're going to go on the air and tell people, it's one thing you're picking a favorite every race, but if you're going to go on the air and tell people to make bets, you've got to be willing to lose your own money. I don't want to hear that you lost money on my horse and I didn't. That's a disgrace.
You don't have to worry about that. Nobody's listening, but you look good on TV.
They're listening, but I'll lose on them too, and win occasionally.
All right, let's do a little run through. Favorite trainer, all time. I don't care what don't take me out of the equation, but who was your favorite guy to interview, bet on, the total package?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I'd have to think. I mean, obviously Alan Jerkins, because not just as a trainer, but a great trainer, as a person. And I think if you looked back on horse racing, there's nobody that did more for horse racing than Alan Jerkins.
Or for horse people.
Yeah, what I'm saying.
Well, you know, that's the thing. You're not going to get the argument from me on that one.
People will never know what Alan Jerkins did for everybody, for nobodies and everybody in this game.
And you'll never have a night here like the night we had him here.
It was a great night. He was a great man and a great. So he's somebody not just as a great trainer, but I have more respect for as a person than anyone I've known in horse racing.
And that's what it's about. It's a total human being. I'm talking about. What about jockey?
In my life, Jerry Bailey was Angel Cordero and Jerry Bailey. I mean, Angel Cordero when I first came in the game was a rock star.
Pick one.
Angel
Cordero.
Angel. Because he was a personality and an amazing talent.
And a great man also.
Love Angel.
And another good person. We're getting a common horse.
Horse? Seattle Slew.
Hey, something scary here. We're checking all the boxes off about the same.
Yeah, I love Seattle Slew.
I might say Pat Day and Cordero, but
yeah.
Seattle Slew was something special.
Yeah,
I think that's the.
He was my first Belmont Stakes.
I saw my birthday. Derby. So I think it was the place we were maybe in life.
Yeah.
But he was some superstar. I'll tell my quick Seattle Slew story though. So 1977, I'm 9 years old. My great uncle takes me to the Derby for the very first time. You'd think my father would since he trained horses, but he didn't do it, and I was hooked from that point on, and I haven't missed a Derby since, and my sole life has become trying to win one. So I read, later on in life, I'm winning races, my career's going pretty good, but I read Seattle Slew, you know, he doesn't have much time left. And I've never really seen him one-on-one. So I called the farm over there, and I said, do y'all mind if I come? I just want to see him, I just want to pet him. They said, come on, we'll give you a private show. He's at Three Chimneys still. Show up at Three Chimneys. They got him all cleaned up, brushed, bring him out. He's standing there like a statue. I walk up to pet him on my shoulder, and somebody bit my arm so hard he took a chunk out of it. And I said, you don't love me near as much as I loved you. But he was a special horse, and that was a special, 70s were a special era of horse racing.
Yeah, well, him and Affirmed and Alydar. There's a great piece by Bob Ehalt. I hope people got a chance to read about Alydar the other day. I mean, Alydar I didn't appreciate as much as a kid because I loved Affirmed, but as time went on, I got to know John Veach, who I consider a friend and I think is just a great guy. I really appreciate how great Alydar was. He was an amazing
Alydar was something special. Now, everybody out there that knows horses and knows about what horses, but he never switched leads in all three races. Which switching leads is like carrying a bucket of water, a 5-gallon bucket on one hand and reaching it over to your other. They run on their left lead on the turn, the right lead on the straightaway. He stayed on his left lead every race the whole way. And everybody says if he had switched his lead, he'd have beat him. But he didn't.
He didn't. But his Whitney up here in the Whitneys this weekend, I can still remember standing at Saratoga around the 8th pole and watching him as he came inside of horses and ran off from that field. It was one of the most impressive performances, even to date, I've ever seen. That may be one of the greatest races I've ever seen.
That was a great era in racing, and those two horses did so much. And you know, the 70s period, you go back to the great match race. You know, it was just a good time to build.
Spectacular bid, too.
What's that?
Spectacular bid.
As good a horse as ever raced, probably.
Absolutely.
I mean, there was a horse should have been a Triple Crown winner.
It was everything. He was, I think it was 24 for 24 from 7 furlongs to 1.25 miles.
And what about the walkover? That was something special at the time. It was just a salute to him, how good he was. He ran in a race that no one competed with him.
He was an amazing horse. You know, we're out of time, Dale.
Are we out of time?
Yeah, we got to. Boyd's here. We got to bring him up.
Well, I
it's
want
to be a tough act for him to follow, don't you think?
Andy, appreciate everything you do, as all horse players do. Like you say, 50% hate you, 50% love you, but evoke emotion in all of them. And may the horse be with you.
Thank you, Dale. I appreciate it.